yesterday in the Bitcoin and altcoin markets. What is that? I don't know why there's a green screen all of a sudden, but there you go. Yesterday in the Bitcoin and altcoin markets, Bitcoin and many alts did in fact pump a little bit. Why is that? Well, there was more buy pressure than sell pressure. That's quite literally why that is. I don't know why that is happening. Um, but if anybody knows how to turn off the green screen, there you go. There you go. Um, so there was obviously more buy pressure than sell pressure, right? That's why prices went up. Put simply, that's the reason. If you look at the volatility, if you look at the entropy, you know, the indications were prices were going up, right? Now, of course, in the initial first, whatever it was, about first 9 hours of the day, prices went a little bit sideways and in fact down a little bit, right? And then they began to climb, starting at around 5 o'clock U.S. Eastern Time in the morning, 5 o'clock a.m. U.S. Eastern Time. So a good several hours before the opening of the traditional markets. And now you're going to wonder, well, what's next? Well, it certainly did reach areas where you would, definitely say, well, on the day, you should be taking profits already if you haven't already done so, right? Because you don't want to swing trade such volatile assets. I mean, imagine if you don't take your profits and it just goes the other way completely today and mean reverts to the downside, right? And you lose all those gains you had unrealized. What's the point? Instead, you could just, if you haven't already, take your gains, and then be in a position, whatever direction it goes next, with more capital in your base. Right now, all those unrealized gains do not help your position. Right? They're unrealized gains. They do not help your position. Right? As a trader, if you have more capital in your base, then that can help your position for the next trade you take. But the assets you have in the trade in that moment are not going to be able to help your position. They're already being used. They've already been deployed, and they're either doing what you want them to do or not. Right? They're either making you more capital or they're losing you capital. Right? Based on which way the trade is going and whether or not you are in it for some reason if you're not making capital. Because of course, if you're losing capital, you should get out of the trade immediately. You should not hang around and wait to lose, your trade, and certainly not to get liquidated, right? Like, okay, it's okay if you lose a few pennies, whatever, a buck or two, but like, you want to get out of your trade ASAP. And when I say okay, I mean that's obviously depending on the person. For many traders, actually, a dollar or two is not okay because they have tiny accounts, right? And for traders like that, if that's your situation, you should not be losing a dollar. If you're approaching 1% and um, and that's a dollar for you, you should get out before 1%, right? In the negative, you should not be accepting 1% losses, and you should be doing whatever you can to trade on exchanges that have low fees or no fees, and you should be trading assets that have low fees or no fees. And there are a bunch of exchanges where you can trade different assets with low fees or no fees. So that way you can use, your small account to grow it. And that's why you would do that, right? And you would deploy capital smartly, preferably on, you know, relatively liquid assets, but that still have decent volatility so that you can grow that account. Because if you're starting from very close to zero, then you want to make sure that you can actually have some growth over time, and that it won't take you a lifetime to grow that account. You want to be able to grow that account fairly rapidly over the course of some months to at least a point where it's what people would call a normal small account, like 5 to 10 grand over the course of some months, and then from there you want to grow it into a decent size medium account, 6 figure, low 6 figures, mid 6 figures over the course of the next year or 2 or 3, and then from there you obviously want to grow it into a multi-million-dollar account, or $1 million plus account over the course of the next couple of years or so, 2-3 years, whatever it might take you, after it's a mid-sized account, and then from there, keep growing it and growing it like that. So yes, these things take time, but you've got to be able to give it time. It's not an overnight thing, and it is extremely, extremely rare that somebody can walk into a market on one day and within 2, 3, 4 days walk out with millions of dollars. Now, has it happened? Yes, it has happened. In fact, it happened not long ago, where some dude traded a bunch of meme coins. I think one in particular. Like he got in when they were launching or something. Somehow he had the alpha on that. I think he was in their Discord or something, so he knew when they were going to launch. And he just got a bunch of that meme coin and just traded the heck out of it. I mean, ran lots and lots and lots of different trades. Yeah. And over the course of a weekend turned, I think, it's like, I don't remember, it was 40,000 or 4,000. Not an enormous amount of money, but, some thousands of dollars into millions of dollars in like literally the course of 72 hours or something crazy, or 96 hours, that he actually took profits on. Yeah. Because he was in and out of trades constantly. Now, I don't remember how he finished that run. I don't remember if he kept all those profits or if he burned them all on stupid decisions later. But I remember reading about it maybe 3 or 4 days into his little, growth spurt there. And, thinking, I said, well, that's pretty cool. Like, that's neat. Somebody, found a way to trade these ridiculous meme coins that have no history. They have no, you can't chart them really because there's really nothing. I mean, okay, sure, you can use like the 1 second or the 10 or 20 second chart, maybe the 15 second or the 30 second if you're lucky. But even the 1 minute, it would take you like, several hours on the first day just to get the full reads on everything. And that's no way to trade, because if you're going to miss the first few hours of a pump during its initial pump, of a meme coin during its initial pump, you're going to lose out a massive, massive percentage of what your overall gains could be. So you really, at that point, you're really just a degen gambler, right? In that sense. Which again, okay, whatever. Some people are really good at that, and congrats to them. But they are, I mean, it should be obvious to everyone, they are the exception, not the rule, right? Like if you're making money gambling on meme coins, you realize it's not trading, right? Not really. Now you can call it that because you're technically using some kind of an exchange system to buy and sell these things, but with no history and no way of knowing what the volatility is or anything else, right? You're literally going on like vibe, rumors, like hype, like what you think is going on based on the amount of messages being spammed through a Discord at any given moment. It's really, you have to be extremely lucky to get it right. Extremely lucky. And that is why those people, you hear about them because they get extremely lucky, because the extremely unlikely thing, the extremely improbable thing happens to them in a good way. You don't usually hear about the things that are extremely unlikely and happen in a bad way to people. And you don't usually hear about the normal probabilities that end up badly for people. right? You don't. You might hear a little bit about it, like you might hear me telling you that it's a bad idea to try to rely on that, to try to rely on the extremely improbable good thing to happen to you. Like that is not a wise way to trade. It's not trading. It's gambling, right? But rarely will you actually hear about the improbable thing um, that happens that, or even the probable thing that happens. It's a bad thing and liquidates a person's position or whatever, because that's the normal course of events. So that doesn't make headlines. A trader loses money is not a headline. Now, if a trader loses $1 billion, like this guy James Wynn lost some kind of $1 billion position or whatever that he had built up, sure, that makes headlines for like a moment. But I bet you if you ask 99.9999% of people right now, they would have no idea who he is. And even I bet you even most traders would have no idea who this guy is. Because guess what? There's plenty of people who've lost $1 billion or more, in unrealized gains, right? Now, I think that he did sell half of his $1 billion position at some point, but he put it right back into SUI or something. And then I believe he proceeded to lose all of that as well as the rest of the 500 million he had left in his Bitcoin position. So pretty sure he lost the whole billion. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure from what I remember. And then he added more positions that he lost after that immediately, because he went like 40x on like 1.5 million positions, something 2 million positions. What a cute dog. Hello. Yes, hello. Yes, you smell my dog. You smell my dog. I know. What a beautiful dog. You beautiful dog. You beautiful. Yeah, you smell my dog? I bet you do. I bet you do. I bet you smell his saliva all over my pants. Yes, you can. Good dog. What an amazing dog. What an amazing dog. All right. And yes, my dog did slobber on me before I left the house today. So I got saliva on my pants. It's hilarious. Well, it's obviously dried since then, but still, other dogs smell it and run right up to it. The joys of having a Saint Bernard. They will slobber on you. So statistically speaking, right, people that you hear about who lose massive amounts of money in bad trades, again, you may hear about them. You may not. Most of the time, you don't. Most of the time, people who lose such huge amounts of money just want to quietly disappear under a rock, and if that's all the resources that they had, you're not going to hear from them again. Usually, because it's just too much to take. It's like it can destroy a person. And people who even make significant amounts, you got to remember the reason you're hearing about them. Like when they make a huge amount in one trade, ridiculous life-changing amounts, blah blah blah. The reason you hear about them to begin with is because of the statistical improbability of them actually achieving that, right? So if they actually do manage to make serious bags, it's so statistically improbable that it's kind of newsworthy in that sense, because you normally don't make, if you're a smart trader, you don't normally leave so much capital on the line to the point where it's going to have such huge returns, unless you are, of course, a kind of investment firm that has an enormous amount of capital. I mean, enormous, like Warren Buffett's type of companies, and they invest in companies. They don't trade, right? So they put money on companies, and over the course of a year or 2 or 5, they might make some serious money back. Or like when Mr. Soros famously shorted the British pound or something and made a vast fortune in a relatively short amount of time, right? Those things happen, right? But those are but it wasn't like a 5-minute trade or something. Yeah, he was patient relatively and waited some days or months or whatever for the trade to yield him the returns that he wanted, and then took his profits, right? And that's how it's done. So bear that in mind, because it just goes to show, right, that the statistical edge lies with the people who take their profits early and often, not with the people who hang on to their trades. Which is why I remind you, whatever bid per day, and if you've actually realized your gains and taken your profits so that you can be in a better capital position, right? It's better if you're not still in a swing position, right? Do next things that can happen to the upside? Yes. Are there also mean reversions that can happen to the downside? Yes. For example, the Solana meme coin and Solana itself. The Solana and on the daily time frame, they still have mean reversions to the upside. It's more than reverse happen sideways or even to the downside if they don't happen for like another month. And that could, but if they happen within the next week or two, that's about 2 Satoshis worth. And that's kind of where we're going to leave it off today. So, and see you guys in the alpha trading.